Let's bring on our panel now. Kirsten Kukowski, the Deputy Communications Director and the National Press Secretary for the Republican National Committee. And kind of an interesting configuration because in the center is the Democratic political strategist, Joe Listingi. To you both, welcome. And Joe, let me start with you. We'll get back to the practical politics, but there is breaking news that Eric Holder is stepping down as Attorney General. Your take on the AG leaving the Obama administration?
Well, this is about that time in a two-term president where these offices start changing over. Obviously, it's going to take some time to find the Attorney General's replacement, so they've given him enough window there. The Attorney General's had a long and storied career now. He's had a lot of great accomplishments for civil rights, for the LGBT community, for disabled Americans, and also he's made a lot of accomplishments with Native Americans, which are often unsung. So we wish him the best and whatever he chooses to do, and on to the next Attorney General.
And Kirsten Kukowski, noticeably absent from Joe's litany of what he claims are successes, Fast and Furious, where the Attorney General enjoyed the protective curtain of the president claiming executive privilege. I would have to say that I would wager that you don't really believe that it's been an Attorney Generalship filled with great accomplishments for Eric Holder.
Well, I think he said storied, and I started trying to think of how many times this building and others have called on the Attorney General to resign, and I'm still trying to figure out how many. You're right. Fast and Furious was probably the first time that we said, hey, this guy has got to go. And I think that since then, all we have continued to see, whether it be from the Attorney General's office or all the way to the White House, is government overreach and unconstitutional. So I think that it's time. I think it was time for a very long time. But now, we're always going to have to keep an eye on what this White House and what this president continues to do in this front.
Fair enough. Let's turn our eyes now to the upcoming Senate races. Kirsten, whole lot of folks are saying, hang on a second, Republicans don't start counting a Senate majority that may not be there. The New York Times, for example, pointing out that there seems to be a difference between the national edge the GOP has and what is happening in the individual Senate races. What is your take on what is happening? Do the Democrats enjoy an advantage in terms of fundraising and getting out the vote?
Well, I think we feel very good about taking back the Senate in 40 days. So I'll start right there. But what I will say is there are 40 days left, and we are going to need all hands on deck from our supporters, which is why we're taking the time over the last next 6 weeks to make sure that we get as many people to get out there and vote early, to send request and send in their absentee ballots, and then obviously to vote on election day. So we have the new vote.gop.com tool that we've been pushing. The chairman's in Iowa today on the first day of early vote. So we need all hands on deck on the ground game. So that is true. We are going to need everyone's help. On the money, I have to laugh. There was just a story just this week about how, we've been hearing over the last several months and years from Harry Reid and the Democrats is that, the big bad Republicans are fundraising from all these billionaires. They're the party of billionaires, when actually they are fundraising twice as much from billionaires than we are. And so they do have a cash advantage, but it's because of that and because Harry Reid's been lying to the American people. So we need all hands on deck, money and ground game, but we're going to pull it out in 40 days.
So, Joe, we notice a few chuckles and a few knowing nods there, and there sure is a whole lot of hard left Hollywood money pouring into Democrat coffers. So is that going to get it done to keep the Democrats in the majority in the Senate?
The Supreme Court is the one that actually changed this a little bit, and I will say this: I'm going to take off my consultant hat for a minute and just talk about the campaigns themselves. The Democratic Party is doing a good job raising funds as a party as compared to the Republicans. There's no disputing that, but on the Republican side, there's a lot more IE money. There's a lot more of outside investors, the Koch brothers, these guys that can do that now because of the expenditure. So it's just a different strategy. In the end, I don't think there's a big cash advantage for either party when you really boil it down. Where there is a bit of an advantage for Democrats is the national versus the state polling. The national polling definitely shows momentum with Republicans, whereas the individual states, they are starting to shift, and Democrats are gaining ground in a lot of these key states, which is expected for the most part. I mean, if this was a football game, the Republicans definitely won the third quarter, and now we're headed into the fourth quarter with the Democrats with momentum. So it's going to be a great election night. People should be tuning in. People should be getting engaged. And the GOTV operation for the Democrats is in place, so I feel good.
Well, let's talk about a curious rebranding in the state of Kansas, where Pat Roberts, longtime Republican incumbent, prevailed in his primary against Dr. Milton Wolf. The Democrat actually left the race, and now a, quote, independent is running. And Kirsten, looks like all the Democrat hopes are pinned to this, quote, independent, who's hired a couple of Democrat consultants. Kirsten, is the GOP nervous about Pat Roberts hanging on to his seat there in Kansas?
Look, we are going to win in Kansas. We have to keep our head down, and we need to run a good race for the next 40 days, and we're going to. You've seen in the news there's a handful of top GOP elected officials, former elected officials, who are going to go help Pat Roberts, and that is going to be very helpful in a red state. But I think the other part of of this campaign that we're going to have to remind all people in Kansas and people across America is that he's a Democrat. Yes, he likes to say he's an independent. He is going to caucus with the Democrats. He has hired people from the DSCC and other national Democrats to run his campaign. So I think we need to just be honest with the American people, honest with people from Kansas about what this race is.
So, Joe, how about it? Chance for honesty. Is this guy not an independent, but just a newly publicly sworn Democrat?
No, he's an independent. He did not run for the party nomination, so let's be clear on that. But more importantly is I love the fact that the solution to protecting an incumbent, where D.C. is often hated right now, is to send more D.C. politicians in to support your candidate. I support that strategy as long as the Republicans want to do it. But it's going to be an interesting race. I don't disagree. I think Senator Roberts is going to win. It's Kansas. I mean, beyond Sebelius, Democrats have struggled there a lot. So I do think Roberts is going to win, but it's going to be a closer win than they want, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And strategically, Democrats are saying, look, you guys are investing funds in Kansas. Your donors are donating and investing in the state of Kansas, something they should have never had to do. They have to invest in Georgia, and they have to invest in Kentucky. I mean, November 4th is going to be exciting, and I can't wait.
Well, let me talk about my native North Carolina, because we used to joke that the suburb of Raleigh called Cary is really an acronym, containment area for relocated Yankees. But I take a look at the polling for Kay Hagan against Tom Tillis, and I see that Hagan has opened up a lead, and I think about all the relocated folks from the North who have moved to North Carolina. Is that what's helping Kay Hagan, Joe?
Well, this is interesting, and this is a good thing you brought this up, because this actually is occurring in a lot of southern states where the economies have brought people from around the country to them. You look at Atlanta and the suburbs around Atlanta. Raleigh is a great example of this. These are areas where they're bringing in sort of a different way of thinking. When I say they, I mean the economy is bringing in different ways of thinking. Some of these people from other parts of the country are providing these melting pots in these states, and politically it's fascinating to see the back and forth here. Kay Hagan is doing well around the state. Her numbers are starting to improve, which is a good boon for Democrats to see, and that's why we're confident going into the fourth in that race.
So, Kirsten, let me get your take on it, because Tom Tillis apparently has united the Republican Party, yet Hagan has opened up a lead in some polls. Update us on North Carolina and why Tillis may prevail election night.
Definitely. This race is going to be very close. Just obviously, North Carolina has been a swing state in presidential elections. It is obviously more of a purple state these days, and so we're running a great campaign there. We're going to keep looking at Kay Hagan's record. I want to say it's upwards of 93-95% of the time that she has taken votes that they've been in line with President Obama, and that's going to be a huge factor in this campaign. We are going to have a video out in the next couple of days that's going to highlight just that. She ran 6 years ago as somebody who was not going to run or vote in lockstep with her party and her president. And guess what? That's exactly what she's done over the last 6 years. And I think that North Carolinians are going to have a problem with that as we really dive in and we examine that over the next 40 days.
Kirsten Kukowski and Joe Listingy, we thank you for the healthy discourse and the predictable disagreements. And one thing's for certain, we will close on this note of unanimity. We want you both to come back as the days dwindle down to a precious few before these key midterm elections. Thanks to you both.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
So